Stevens Point Historic Preservation Design Review Meeting, recorded August 5, 2020.
I will start the meeting. I'll ask for a temporary chair and we'll go from there. How does that sound?
Good.
No objection?
Yeah.
Okay, it is 2:02 p.m. on the 5th of August. This is the Historic Preservation Design Review Commission. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. First item of business, we are deviating from the agenda because we did lose our Chair Beveridge. She somehow jumped off this Zoom call. So I will open nominations up for a temporary chair. Anyone willing to nominate someone for temporary chair? Not all at once.
I'll nominate Tori.
Nomination for Alder Jennings. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. I'm sorry, Alder Jennings, do you accept the nomination?
I will accept.
Okay, all those in favor of appointing Chair or Alder Jennings as temporary chair signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Alder Jennings, this is your meeting.
Okay, are you, can you give me just 1 second because I need to open another screen.
Here we are.
Or actually, I need you to go to the agenda, I guess, so I can see it.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
It looks, we do have a quorum, so we will proceed. So the first item on the agenda is the report of the April 8th, 2020 meeting. Any comments or questions? And do we have a, what are your wishes?
I'll move to accept.
We need a second.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no comments, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. The report is accepted. The next item on the agenda, number 2, is a request from Mike Beckham for a facade improvement grant and design review to install a second exit door. This is at 1221 2nd Street. Director Konofsky, could you go ahead and give us an overview of this? And then if Mr. Beckham has more information, and follow up, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Sure, I'll actually have Adam Kuhn, who's our planner, do the overview. He's been working very diligently on this agenda. So go ahead, Mr. Kuhn.
Sure, thank you, Director Karnowski. So as Alder Jennings mentioned, that the applicant, Mike Beckham, is requesting a facade improvement grant and a design review approval for some exterior work done at 1221 2nd Street. Now, primary premise for this request is to install an additional exit door that's required through state building code, and the facade improvement request will total $12,128.80. Perfect. So this screen here shows the main improvements that's going to be proposed both as a phase 1 and as a phase 2 proposal. So for phase 1, there'll be 2 main improvements, one on the west facade and one on the south facade. Now on the west facade, there'll be several different items taken up. The first will be removing the 2nd story window to install that egress door that's required through the state building code. Second, they'll construct the platform and accompanying railings for that 2nd story floor. Third, they're going to be replacing the existing wall signage that's shown on the 2nd floor. And then lastly, they'll be replacing the first story doors and windows. Now on the south facade, they're going to be replacing the existing door and window to match the doors that's going to be proposed on the west facade. Second, there'll be some tuck pointing occurring on both the south and the east walls along the south facade. And then lastly, removing the existing satellite dish. Now, as a phase 2, I guess I should say first off, phase 1 is expected, if approved, will be expected to start in the fall and then carry over into 2021. Phase 2 would start roughly in the late summer, early fall of 2021. And the applicant is aware that they will likely need to seek design review approval for this, since this would be a year past the approval of this meeting. But just to kind of give a glimpse of some of the improvements that they're looking at, for the west facade, they're looking at removing the fake brick on the lower half, and we'll show some pictures later on to highlight that. Second, there will be some tuck pointing and brick repair. Third, there'll be additional lighting fixtures along the storefront. And then lastly, modified storefront signage along the first and second floors. So here shows some existing conditions of the lot as is right now. You can see pretty prominent the fake brick on the first floor with the more large, high storefront windows. So to kind of give a glimpse too, you can see the sign that they're proposing to take down as a phase 1 proposal, the fusion sign. And if you go to the next slide, here you can see, and there'll be some images in the subsequent slides I'll show this, but on the first image to the left, it'll be the window pane farthest to the right that will be removed, and then that will be the location for the second egress door. And then lastly, you can see the south facade. You can see the egress door that they would want to replace the window and door to match the west facade doors and windows, and then modify the balcony modify the balcony and the stairwell as that's in some pretty poor conditions right now structurally. And next slide. And here just gives an overview for folks to know the general location of the subject parcel, located more on the far north and east side of the square. And then next we'll show, now here gives a pretty aggregate view of the proposed improvements that will take place. So as I mentioned, the second egress door will be located on the far right side, far right window pane, with the supporting balcony and railings situated right below that. Secondly, there'll be the removal of the signage along kind of where the word Caravan Wine Shop is located right now. Third, there'll be the removal of the metal rollaway awning and then adding globe lighting to more light up the storefront for folks who are going to be walking down the sidewalk. Fourth, there'll be the removal of the fake brick, as I mentioned below, and then perform tuck pointing and any necessary repairs to accommodate that. And then fifth, we'll be replacing the windows and the doors to make it more energy efficient and match, but yet still match the existing doors and windows that currently lie there.
Adam, real quick, could you just verify whether or not the brick will be painted, or are they going to return it to the original brick that's underneath? I think that this diagram indicates it may be painted, so I just want to clarify with the commission on this.
Correct, it will be painted as proposed. All right, so then here is a historical photo showing back from 1982 to show what the west facade looked like. And you can see it's fairly consistent, fairly reminiscent of the existing facade and other exterior structures and modifications onto the facade itself. So you can see the tile situated between the first and the second floors, the fake brick on the first floor, the large window panes along the storefront, and of course the wall mounted along the second floor. Now here provides a snapshot of the facade improvement request. Here you can see all the different contractors and their respective bids. Now in short, the total project cost will come out to be approximately $30,322, of which 40% of the total project cost would come up to $12,128.80. So subsequently, staff recommends approval of the design review and the facade improvement grant request in the amount of $12,128.80, subject to the following conditions shown on your screen. And a lot of these are more general requirements for any type of tuck pointing. For example, using only organic, non-toxic chemicals, to have it that the new windows and the door trims to have it match in color, to have it match in existing materials and in designs, to have the transom windows be reviewed and approved by the chair. Likewise, the wall signage that will be coming up later on as well. And then the next slide will also show the following conditions as well, pertaining to that the applicant would need to obtain applicable building permits, that all the work will need to be completed within 1 year, and then follow the facade improvement guidelines, such as the funds not being dispersed until the project is fully completed, and then not exceeding that 40% threshold. So with that, I will turn it over to Mike Beckham. I believe he's on the call, and I can have him discuss a little bit more about his project.
Thanks, Adam. So we've looked at the possibility of doing this building for some time. Keith Bisek is on this call, and so, you know, a big reason that we started exploring this again is that he has a pretty ambitious build-out plan. He and his wife have moved into that space and are getting ready to open up a Caravan Wine Shop. And so they're looking at some improvements inside, and also wanted to do some things on the facade that we're working together on. And so the doors and the windows on the main level, I would like to be somewhat consistent with what we've seen in other downtown facade projects. So there's some uniformity to some other projects. And then obviously you have the frontage, the south egress. That's not under order or needed. I just think if we're going to look at doing the front, we can do that now. That would be something we would otherwise maybe look at 5 or 10 years down the road. But I think that that would be an improvement, probably a safety improvement. And I noticed that you guys use that facade in your manual for something you're trying to get rid of. And so this would give us an opportunity to do that. I think that this is, it will definitely improve the building. This is not in line with other historic buildings. It's actually by the rest of the square, maybe a younger building downtown, but in need of a facelift. And I should mention, I don't think you had the top tuck pointing in phase 1, but that is part of phase 1 above the signage that I would do. The phase 2 projects, Keith would probably be the applicant a year from now. And I would just support that as a building owner. Those are projects that he would do below on the kind of the bottom half of the frontage. And if it's okay, I'd maybe give Keith a minute or two to talk about his ideas and what he's doing and his involvement with the project.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, everything so far seems to be clear as to what we're planning. With regards to removal of the fake brick, that kind of is one of the major projects because we don't really know what it looks like under there. The ultimate goal is to restore it to the true brick, if that is under there, and have it match the entire building, the entire facade. Until then, we will, propose to paint the artificial brick, a color that the city approves of from your palette book, while we investigate what's behind one of those fake bricks to get a sample. So that's going to be its own little project. And also with regards to the sign replacement, where you see now Caravan Wine Shop, currently what's there in one of the previous slides, you could see this colored tile, and I imagine you guys have been down to the building to see that. That too will be kind of its, yeah, there it is under the windows running across. That too will also be its own kind of discovery. We want to keep the building as authentic as possible and work within that. And so when we discover what's behind there, that will kind of dictate, what we're actually able to go forward with. We want that to use that as signable area. And we think that it's similar to the martial arts building that's a couple buildings over, where it will be just a kind of flat, slightly like, I don't know if it was stucco or concrete surface, but then we would put our sign on top of that. But the plan is to remove that colored tile and the metal awning right below it. And again, just to like Mike said, make the building as a more attractive part of downtown while taking it back to its historic nature.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll open it up for discussion. I just had a few comments about this because I have been very much involved in the discussions. I want to thank Mike Beckham and Keith Hvac and also city staff for all the effort that has gone into this. There has been a great deal of sensitivity to aesthetics and history on the part of Keith Hvac and also Mike Beckham. This is, as has already been mentioned, is a newer building, and certainly relative to the downtown, a fairly new building. We did find a photograph of the original building in that location, and interestingly, there was a front escape door on the second story, so it was on the other side, the other end. So that was a really interesting find. So in some sense, they're actually bringing the building back to the original historic building that was actually there. But this is a great business. A lot of attention and thought has gone into this, and I just want you to know that I strongly support this. And just one comment about the painting of the brick, because we've had discussions about that. I want to call everyone's attention to the fact that there are a number of historic buildings downtown that are painted, that are much older than this building. So that's not out of line with what's already there. But let's open it up for discussion.
I have a question. The second floor egress door, once you come out the door, how do you get down?
It's designed to be a jump platform. So in the event that there would be a fire at that property, you would walk out onto the jump platform, and at that point, the fire department would either come and pick you up, or it's low enough where you could actually you could jump off onto the sidewalk below.
Okay.
That is designed to current building code standards.
Okay. Now, when you take the fake brick off on the first floor, if there's only wood or something under it, what are you going to do?
Well, I guess I can offer what we know, because it is a great unknown. The Brills own this building from probably the mid-30s, the Brill family from the mid-30s up until when we bought it several years ago. Unfortunately, the second generation owners are not with us, but I talked to their son, and he's of the opinion that the fake brick that's down there was just leftover that they had used in other projects. So I do think that there's a good chance, if that can come off successfully and if the adhesive can come off, we're going to have clean brick that matches above, because that's his limited recollection. But as far as what would be done in the worst case scenario, that I turn that over to Keith, and if he has anything to offer.
Well, we would probably keep it painted artificial brick. We're going to work with our contractor to do a test sample in kind of a out of the way place from that facade, just to take a peek what's back there, and use that as a test to see what would be represented throughout the entire facade of that area. And if we expose a little bit and see that they're actually covering up some, wood or whatever it might be with that artificial brick, I think it would probably be in our interest to keep the artificial brick there, painted the appropriate color.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what's behind the tile?
Well, the tile probably was added sometime in the 50s. The awning, the flat awning that's there, we know is 1958. And there is a photo that's dated 1950s downtown that is part of the Historical Society. And as Keith described, it looks like blocks of concrete. So it's not brick, but it looks like a division of square concrete blocks, looking at that pre-awning.
This is Mary. I've got a question about the front egress door. If it was originally on the other side, why can't it be on the other side now?
According to Jimena, because the Leaders building, the old Westland Insurance building,
Uh-huh.
you cannot have egress that is too close within 10 feet of an adjoining building like that. So this one is okay on Troy's building on the other side, but it couldn't be on the other side because it would violate their windows on the Leaders building. We had
Okay.
the same issue. We looked at a possibility of going out the back for this egress, and that wasn't an option. Only this was an option.
And why are there two egress doors upstairs? I'm assuming two apartments or something?
Correct. There's a big 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom behind it.
Okay, thanks.
And just to add a little bit more to that, this was basically our building inspection department making these requirements. So this is the owner and new tenant responding to what the building inspectors said they had to do, just to clarify.
Is the upstairs apartments, are they rented out now?
Yes.
All right, if there are no other comments from the committee, the board, are there any comments from the public?
I have a comment. I guess I would be opposed to, this is Eric McFarland, I would be opposed to painting the brick, as that's clearly contrary to the masonry guidelines that are in our guidelines for approving projects. The guideline says paint should not be applied to masonry surfaces that were historically not painted. And looking at that building, it doesn't look like the front part of it anyway ever was painted, and I wouldn't approve of that.
Just a question about that. Is this a fake veneer brick? What kind of, can you describe what this fake brick is?
Well, I guess my opposition isn't to the fake brick. It was my understanding they were talking about painting all of the facade. And that top portion is clearly brick that's never been painted.
The top half, Eric, wouldn't be painted.
Oh, then I completely misunderstood the what was stated before. I thought I might have heard that wrong. So
Yeah.
okay.
The only thing changing on the top half is taking off the what you see as the fusion sign and then caulking in those anchor points so it's weatherproofed. And there is some tuck pointing in the upper right corner that we'll have done at some point in the next year. But the bottom half where the tile is and the fake brick, that's where Keith is looking at some options, including painting over the tile area and then for, I think, temporarily painting over the fake brick so that looks better to buy time to see what's underneath it.
Okay, I just simply misunderstood. I apologize then. I don't oppose that.
All right, so let's move to the public. Are there any comments from anyone from the public? And I won't be able to see, so you'll need to unmute yourself and go ahead and step in, please.
This is Makira Zarazua. I'm District 4 Alder. I just wanted to express that I support this project, and I think it's really exciting to anytime we can improve the look of things downtown. And this is a great location for this business idea, and I look forward to seeing it move forward. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Corey, can you hear me?
Yes, Lee, we can. Mr. Beveridge, we can hear you now.
Finally. Okay, I just got back with multiple computers and things, but.
All right, so I think that means I turn the gavel back over to Chair Beveridge, correct?
You can, most definitely, if Chair Beveridge is willing to take the chairmanship back over. Otherwise, Alder Jennings, you are the officially appointed chair for this specific meeting.
Okay, well, let's at least continue through this agenda item. All right. And we'll bring it back to the board. What are your wishes?
I move to approve with staff recommendations. I think this is a great project and has been very thoughtful in how they've put this together. So I'll move approval with staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay, can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
where are we in the agenda? What item?
Item number 1, or the, sorry, we're reviewing, I can't see the agenda.
We're reviewing the Second Street facade grant and design review request from Mike Beckham and Point Housing.
Okay, thank you.
Just
Yeah, item 2.
I guess I don't know, are we, since this is confusing, I'll just tell you what my concerns are. The jump platform on the front of a building is a non-starter for me. Would destroy the look of the entire front of the building. Removing the awning that's there is a good idea. Removing the brick and tile is a good idea. I have some concerns about removing the existing awning. And the projecting sign, once it's removed, I don't know we'd ever allow it to go back up, although we've allowed it on other buildings if all their framework, et cetera, was still intact. And there's a conflict with potential awnings in the corner with the insurance business. Their balloon awning projects potentially into the sort of right away of the subject's awning. And an aside, the balloon awning is damaged in several places and that cannot be repaired. So I don't know if I'm covering old ground here or not.
Yeah, we have discussed this already, and we have a motion and a second on the floor, which is to approve with staff recommendations. And just to, in terms of the jump platform, we've already discussed this, but this was a requirement by the building inspection. And there has been a considerable amount of sensitivity to aesthetics and history in this building. And this was not the original building. And actually the original building had a similar platform and door, but it was on the other side. That was the late 1800s structure. But because we have a motion, technically because we have a motion and a second on the floor, we need to carry forth unless Director Karnofsky, if you have a different opinion on that.
You know, Robert's rule says when you have a motion and a second, then that's a good time to continue discussion if there is such discussion. Relating, you know, just to reiterate Alder Jennings' statement, you know, the proposal with the jump platform is required in order to occupy one of the 2 units. Current building code requires that you have 2 points of egress when you're on a second story. And so this would be sufficient for one of the apartments and actually make it a safer place for renters to occupy. And that's something that I think we should take into consideration as well. The jump platform, as discussed just previously, was, you know, if you wanted to go out, if there was a fire at the building, you had to go out onto the jump platform, either jump from the platform onto the sidewalk, or the fire department would come and get you down from that location. They, Mr. Beveridge, are not going to be painting the top half of the building. That will remain the current brick color, but the fake brick that is on the bottom half of the building will be painted consistent with the palette, the color palette that the city has within our historical requirements.
Okay. We have not met yet. My background is real estate for about 40 years. I understand jump platforms, but that's a totally inappropriate place for it. Now I can understand they probably have a front and a back apartment, and the jump platform that's there on the rear probably is less accessible to the front unit. But sticking one on the front of an historic building, I think, is horrible. It shouldn't even be considered. It shouldn't even gotten this far to ask us to approve it. I'm very unhappy if this goes through. This will be an abomination, and we'll have more of them up and down the whole street. Jump platforms should be hidden from view. So you got my opinion, and I thought they were going to remove the fake brick, etc. Now they're going to paint it. Is that what I'm understanding?
For the time being, there is a longer term plan and another phase to remove the existing fake brick veneer, expose what is hopefully a brick underneath that at some point. I mean, everything's within due time with the proper amount of money. So that is one of their processes. It's just it's going to take longer than doing it right now. It's part of a second phase that we went through, and I can bring that up on the screen for your own information, Mr. Beveridge.
Okay, I just, why bother painting it then if they're planning to remove it eventually anyhow? But the motion made and seconded at this point will allow a jump platform?
Correct.
Well, all I can do, if you're calling for a vote, I can vote no. That's my only option.
Am I able to interject or no?
Yes, we have a motion and a second, but we still can discuss, so please go ahead.
I would just add to the chair's point, it wasn't for a lack of exploration. I don't know that you have other buildings downtown that have.
I'm sorry, Mike, could you identify who you are?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike Beckham, building owner. It wasn't for a lack of exploration. And working with DJ and Jimena on this, and the circumstances of it, we pretty much explored every which way but loose to make it work. And ultimately, it was their recommendation that that was the best option for this building. I would imagine it's a unique case. I don't think you're going to see other people do this because I would imagine they have other options or they already have that built out.
Yeah, but in the past, if that were the only option, then there would be no discussion. It cannot be done. We aren't here to try and figure out a way to get the people from the top of that building onto the ground for safety. I understand the need for jumps. But on the front of a building, on a square, this is horrible.
Well, it's complicated. To be honest, insurance doesn't see it as an issue. So my insurance provider doesn't have an issue with it. It's just the city and code. And it's been this way for probably a half century. And for whatever reason, through this process, this is when it's come up. And DJ and Jimena have explored it extensively, both from inside the building and looking around at options.
What has been around for a half century?
The apartments upstairs.
Oh, okay.
In this building.
Okay.
That configuration.
Okay.
So if it was ruled pre-existing, I would be fine with it, but I don't think that the inspection department would see it the same. And so it probably leads to a conflict between inspection and historic, and I would understand inspection would probably lead in that discussion based on their finding. Although I could be wrong.
Yes, but historic is not here in order to cure code violations. That has nothing to do with us. We are looking at the exterior of a building that is going to look horrible with a door stuck in there. You know, it's like putting rabbit ears on an elephant. It's just horrible. And whether it's safe or not is not necessarily our discussion. Our discussion is what you can do with the building. And I can't believe any commissioner is willing to approve this.
This is Mary. Lee, I agree with you. As it looks right now, I don't like the look at all, but I'm somewhat amenable to it because the earliest version of the building had a door and a jump platform. It was just on the complete other side. So it's not as if this door and jump platform is completely a modern idea for this building. But I agree, I'd much rather it be on the other side of the building.
Yeah, anywhere but the front.
Like Mary, that's why I was in agreement with this project, is because of the fact that it is in alignment with the historical nature of this building and its original configuration. So that's why I moved approval.
I'm sorry, Tori Jennings, Adam or Director Konofsky, could you sort of finalize this discussion, because there isn't an option here. We have been told by the building inspection what has to be done. We're looking at a schematic that may be influencing people's perceptions, but I am very, very confident in the design approach to this, that a great deal of consideration and sensitivity is going into this, and they're not creating something that's going to be ugly. I'm absolutely confident in that.
How can you, when our guidelines talk about similar and etc., a door is not similar to a window. It's a completely different item. It does not fit with the flow of the front of the building.
Right, I want to, once again, I'll say that we have a motion and a second, and I'm asking Director Konofsky or Adam, can you just either restate or say in a new way, there isn't an option here, or help elaborate on that?
Yeah.
The option is to eliminate the use of the unit if it's not legal. I mean, it's not our problem that somebody put an apartment there and it's not legal to modern code. That's nowhere in historic regulations will you find that. Personally, I think we should say, we should say no on this, and then if they want, they can take it to the Common Council, who loves to reverse us because they don't know much about historic. That won't be the first time, but that's the proper way to do this.
So, yeah, I mean, you do. I mean, everybody's bringing up some really excellent points, and unfortunately, in this specific situation, if the jump platform is not installed, the city inspection department has indicated that they would not allow that second unit to be occupied. I think that Commissioner Scripps brought up an excellent point, that the building that was there prior to 1928, before being destroyed, did have a jump platform on the front of the building. It wasn't that exact location, it was on the opposite side, but I think that is something that should be taken into consideration.
I haven't seen any of this information or any photos. And if it was a building and it was destroyed by natural causes or fire or something, and a new building was built in its place in 1928, the new building becomes the historic document, not an old building that no longer exists. You can't relate the two. There are other buildings down there that were built for the first time in 1928. And so how can we say a building that no longer exists had a feature? It may have had it, fine, but the one that's there now is the original building from 1928. We don't have the right to change it like this, no matter what was done before. Probably before the first building was put up, there was probably a barn there, or there was something else. It may have been rebuilt 2 or 3 different times. But we're dealing with the current 1928 building as placed there, not something that had been there before.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beveridge. I think you've made your case.
Okay.
What we do now is there's a motion and a second. We need to vote on that. If it fails, then you have the opportunity to put forward a different motion. So the motion is to approve with staff recommendations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay.
Nay. We need a
I
count.
can't tell how many. We're going to have to.
I can do a roll call.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay, Beveridge,
Nay.
Jennings,
Aye.
McComb,
Aye.
is Siebert on the call?
Nay.
Scripps?
Aye.
That's 3-2 motion passes.
Okay, so moving ahead. Next agenda item, I need to see the agenda. Item number 3 is a request from Angie Novak on behalf of Century Insurance for a design review to perform exterior improvements at 1105 Main Street. This was, oh yeah, go ahead. So let's open it up for discussion. Who would like to present on this so we have the information?
Sure, I can. Thank you, Alder Jennings. So as Alder Jennings just mentioned, that the applicant Angie Novak is requesting a design review to perform various exterior improvements at 1105 Main Street. Now, these improvements include a variety of different proposals, such as adding an egress door, signage, vinyl graphics, a ramp, and a shaft entrance for roof access. And if some of you remember, back in 2016, Century Insurance sought a design review to conduct similar interior and exterior building improvements. Now, these improvements encapsulate both on the north and south facades. On the north facade, the improvements include installing an emergency egress door, adding vinyl graphics to the storefront windows, and installing a wall sign near the front entrance doors, kind of about to the northeast side of the front entrance doors. On the south side, there'll be additional vinyl graphics added to the storefront windows, installing an accessible ramp, constructing an emergency egress door with an awning located above, and then creating the roof access shaft entrance. Now, the next slide shows some of the existing conditions on the site. So you can see on the first image to the left, the Century Co-op with the tenant space located directly to the west of that. Then an image showing the exterior facade of the building if you're walking along the sidewalk. Then next, you can see some additional conditions such as the exposed facade on the front, and then looking more at the back and the south side of the facade, you can see the 2 sets of doors located on the far left-hand portion of your screen, and you can see on the right the existing shaft entrance that you can see have cement blocks covering it as is right now, and then another close-up of the storefront entrance on the south side of the facade. Now here shows a pretty comparable list of all the improvements. So again, on the front of the building, letter A shows the location of the emergency egress door. Letter B shows where the approximate locations of the vinyl graphics and where they'll be located on the windows. C, as I alluded to before, will be the location of the wall sign that's proposed. And on the back of the building, on the south facade, D represents the vinyl graphics going to be added, that's proposed to be added to the storefront doors. E would be the location of the ramp. F would be the location of where the emergency egress door would be added, with the fabric awning being extended farther out to cover the location of where the new egress door will be located. And then G will be the location for the roof access shaft entrance. Now next shows some of the renderings for the proposed improvements. So the two images on the left hand of the left hand of your screen shows the location and design of the wall signage. Again, you can see the wall sign being mounted to the side of the facade, showing extending out roughly about 54 inches both in length and width. Next, you can see on the right-hand portion of your screen the location of the shaft entrance, again mentioning the existing state of having cement blocks covering it. The proposed version includes adding a door and again an entrance into the for the shaft entrance that will readily be similar to the existing design and scope of the storefront doors already. And then on the lower right-hand corner shows more of an example of the type of ramp that they're proposing for the south facade of the building. And then lastly, here shows two renderings of the emergency egress door. You can see the proposed that'll match, again, the trim and the type of door in terms of material, in terms of color, as the existing storefront doors along the north side of the facade, and then the lighting that will be situated directly above it. And then ultimately, staff recommends approval of the design review request subject to the following conditions shown on your screen, such as having the windows and door trim match in color, having metal details such as the color, the design be submitted and approved by the chairperson, having wall signage be approved by the chairperson as well, and then obtain any applicable building permits, and having the awning, for example, on the south side of the facade, having a similar valance to the existing awning situated directly to the left of that, as shown on some of the images prior. And I believe Alder Jennings, the applicant, is on the call right now.
Sorry, okay, if you have nothing further, we'll have the applicant speak.
Yeah, thank you, Adam, and thanks everybody for your time today. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Visitors Bureau for Stevens Point area, but Century Insurance and the Visitor Bureau are teaming up in moving that group to a new space downtown. Century Insurance, who I work for, we own this building currently, and we occupy the east half of it. We're looking to rent out the west half to Sarah Bresch and her team from the Visitor Center. So we started construction on the interior a couple months back, and we're working on building out the space for them. And along with that, we've had a couple changes to occupancy, which is the reasoning for some of these doors being added. For instance, the one on the screen right now it'll be a stairwell to the basement. So previous to Sarah's team occupying the space, we didn't really have a use for the basement. It was just unoccupied. With them moving in, it'll be turned into a storage facility. And with that, we needed a secondary exit. So that's why we wanted to add this door in particular. Would we be able to go back a couple slides just to the overall kind of summary? I can kind of talk through each of these and the reasoning why. So I talked about the front door that we're adding. The vinyl graphics. This would be more of like a branding and wayfinding identification element for the visitor center. Right now they have a really prominent location off of the freeway here on the north side of Point. And so between the vinyl graphics on the windows and the flag sign that we're proposing, this will bring the attention and the visitors to this location. Let's see here. So vinyl graphics on the storefront door on the back. So this would be more of like a shipping receiving application. So when they receive their pallets of visitors guides, they'll be at this door from the back parking lot. So this is, like I said, for mainly deliveries. The ramp, similar to that, and Sarah, I think, is on the call too, and she can feel free to jump in on this. But the ramp, we're looking to have easier loading and unloading for these pallets that she's receiving, 6-10 pallets at a time. Right now there's like a 6-inch height difference with the door and the grade of this parking lot. And while I'm touching on this, Adam had mentioned that Jimena said with the two doors immediately adjacent to the storefront where I have the square and letter F. Per code, I need to add a platform that extends like 3 or 4 feet before you can have a step. So that would be, once that design would be finalized, I would imagine I'd bring that back to whoever is assigned to this project from your guys' team, just to get final approval on how that would look. And then I think, so the only other thing, well, we have the emergency egress door in the back. This is again coming from the basement. We need this door. It leads you into the stairwell so that, for instance, if the first floor was on fire and someone was down in the storage room, they would have an immediate exit out and they wouldn't have to go into the first floor, which would be on fire or whatever the emergency may be. The last item here, we have our main HVAC equipment is on the roof, and we've had instances in the past where there's really no good way to get on the roof today. They usually just use an extension ladder, and we've had a couple instances where people take the ladder. And so our maintenance staff are stranded on the roof until someone can come to help them. As odd as that sounds, that's actually happened. So this is not related to Sarah's build out of the space, but this would be for Century Insurance's maintenance purposes, basically. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums up everything we're looking to do here. I guess I would just ask if Sarah Brish has any comments to add.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you, Angie, for your very thorough presentation. Adam, yours too. I don't really have anything to add except that we're ecstatic to be moving downtown and be working with Century Insurance. They've been a phenomenal partner through all of this. And I feel that in working with Adam and his team and Ryan, that all of the graphics align with all of the requirements set by the city, along with the sign that will be protruding from the front of the facade. So from our standpoint, it's all about, as Angie said, branding the building to maximize walk-ins. Right now we are at a prominent location on North Division, and we are really excited to be where our visitors are at. We know the majority of our visitors are traveling downtown to entertain, to shop, and to eat. And so we are looking forward to intercepting them downtown and sharing with them all of the other great things to see and do in the Stevens Point area. So for us, signage is critical in luring people into the storefront. That's all I would have to add.
Great, thank you very much. It's a really exciting project. Comments, questions from the commission, please, and then we'll move it to the public and back to the commission. Again, any comments from the commission? Please unmute.
I'll just unmute to say this is Mary again. It looks great to me, and I'm also excited about having the Visitors Bureau downtown.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from the public? You will need to unmute and introduce yourselves because I cannot see who's everybody on the screen. Let's give this a moment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. What are your wishes?
I would move to accept.
Sorry, if I could make a few comments. Since this is a new building and—
Hang on, we have a motion. I'm sorry, Mr. Beveridge. We have a motion, so I need a second before we can comment. Is there a second?
Mary McCollum, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please go ahead, Mr. Beveridge.
All right, thank you. As I said, it's a new building, and the whole front was completely changed a few years ago. So changes to this building are not necessarily concerning in almost any fashion, unless we want to go back and use the buildings that were there originally, like we just did on the square, but that would be pretty ridiculous. So my only question is the ramp in the rear, is that going to some sort of a new doorway, or is that going up to the doors that are there?
Yeah, so the ramp that we're proposing would ramp up to that door on the screen. It's labeled as D. So the existing doors remain, and then we would just do a ramp up to it.
Excuse me, my neighbor just fell. I have to exit for a while.
Okay. Does that?
That's too bad. All right, that's about, as I say, it's my only question.
Yeah, the intent of that ramp would be, you know, like I said, loading and unloading, for instance. You could back your minivan up the ramp if you wanted to.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, a quick question about the vinyl graphics.
Sure.
If they're going on the inside of the glass, we have no control over that. You can do anything you want on the inside. If they're going on the outside, then they become signage and have to fall into the regulations on total amount of signage. The projecting sign, as I said, we got a new building and we have all kinds of regs on projecting signs. We wouldn't allow any of the older buildings downtown to put up a projecting unless all the original hardware was there, etc. So there again, you may be opening up a can of worms. Everybody else will want one. But beyond that, I can approve of this.
I just have one other question or one other comment to add. The vinyl graphics we're proposing would be on the exterior of the glass. And then just along with that flag sign, I know our leadership at Century has kind of debated whether or not Century would want its own sign as well. There's no plan in, nothing in stone for that, but if that comes up, I would look to present that to your group as well.
So I'm not sure I saw any photos of what the graphics would look like, or we provided something that showed them in place.
Mr. Beveridge, they're in your agenda packet.
Okay, I might have missed it, but then, so those are all being considered in the signage, the projecting and all the graphics is all one sign package?
Correct, and I'll need to get a sign permit for that as well.
Correct.
Correct, yep.
Okay. All right, I do remember seeing those, thank you.
There you go.
Okay, if there's no further comments, thank you, everyone. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further comments or questions, all in favor signify. We have had a commissioner step out, so we still have a quorum. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Next agenda item, please. Item number 4 is a request from Jean Schulfer for a design review to install a wall sign at 1417 Main Street. Adam, are you going to cover this, please?
Yes, thank you, Alder Jennings. So as Alder Jennings just mentioned, the applicant, Jean Schulfer, is requesting a design review to install a wall sign at 1417 Main Street. Now, there is a wall sign that currently exists on the site, with the proposed sign being placed at the same location, and this proposed sign will be roughly double the size of the existing wall sign. Now, in terms of the signage itself, the materials will compose of a translucent vinyl letters, printed vinyl logos, and a corner accent and border that's painted onto the sign face. The size will be approximately 35.5 square feet with 108 inches by 47.5 inches. The design will be the logo and letterings. There will be no lighting included on this wall sign. And then the location, as we'll show in the next few slides, will be along the front facade of the building. Now here are some of the historical photos showing more of the building itself. So the right one you can see was dated 1976, and the building, the image I should say on the left hand of the screen is about 5-10 years older than that. Now I would say too that this building in whole is relatively young in comparison to, for example, the other agenda items that we've been discussing earlier today. But now discussing about the proposed sign itself. Now originally the proposal included supposed to be a freestanding sign, not a wall sign. And as the proposed freestanding sign exceeded the sign requirements, the applicant subsequently decided on embarking on a wall sign. So you can see that the dimensions of the sign will be approximately 108 inches wide by 66 inches tall. Now the next slide, you'll see the proposed sign location. So the left image shows the existing sign you can see, and then the right sign will be again located in the same location and approximately double the size of the existing sign. Now subsequently, staff recommends approval of the design review following the conditions stated on the screen, that the chairperson has the ability to review and approve minor amendments, that a sign variance shall be sought to permit the location of the sign as it's located outside of the signable area. And then the last two, that a sign permit would have to be required, and then all work shall be completed within 1 year. And I believe Alder Jennings, the applicant, is on the call as well.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead. The applicant can now speak, please.
Okay, this is Gene Schulfer, and thank you, Adam, for that. I do want to make just a couple of comments. The proposal is for a lit sign. It is to be internally lit, and I did include that in the communications with you. So it would be internally lit, but all that would light up would be it's push-through lettering. So the Schulfer and Associates Wealth Management lettering is what would be lit from behind. And so if you can look at that, I'm not sure if you have that picture of the sign, but you would see the blue with the white outline. That would be somewhat what it would look like, as well as the lion logo would also be glowing, basically. Otherwise, Adam did a great job of presenting it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll turn it over to the commission. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
This is Lee Beveridge. Will this signage project above the actual walkway, the ramp it's being fastened to, or will it all be below it like the last signage?
The arch on the top would be the only part that would be projecting above that concrete wall. It will not project above the railing that is affixed to that wall.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I don't have our lighting signage in front of me. I know we get pretty cautious about any lighted signs downtown. I assume staff has gone through all of that.
Yeah, so whenever you have these backlit signs where the letters are lit up, that's typically something that staff is supportive of. In this case, we would be supportive of that request from Schulfer and Associates as well. The backlit lighting on some of these signage provides very, very little light pollution as opposed to some of the other signs that might be downtown that are currently backlit. So just given the technology of LED and having that minimal impact on the surrounding properties, having the backlit signage and the backlit letters is something, again, staff is supportive of.
Will this be dawn to dusk or dusk to dawn?
Yes.
Okay, if there's no other comments from the committee, any comments from the public?
I do have a comment. This is Mary. That's one of our city's pretty prominent prairie style buildings. And I'm somewhat disconcerted by the sign design. Doesn't seem to match with the building's architecture, the curved line on top and the little jabberdoos on the side. It's not a huge concern, but I am mentioning it because I'd much rather see a sign that reflected the building's architecture and the flavor of the period.
Thank you, Mary. I'd just add a couple of things to that. And we did take that into account as we were designing it. And as I'm looking at the picture, the photo or the picture of the sign that is in the packet, there were a couple of small design elements that were changed. The design, the front design pieces that are in the corners that are kind of curvy, we changed those to a more of a prairie style, as well as those fleur-de-lis next to the address would actually be like a square broken into 4 parts. The arc across the top, we definitely recognize that is not prairie architecture style, but it does go along with the address plate and the mailbox that are currently located on the front of the building. And so it was just following that, even though that may not be originally historically accurate.
Okay, any comments from the public? Please unmute and state your name, please. All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. I want to express my gratitude to the applicant for their efforts with this. They have been very careful. I'm the alder for this district. They did reach out to me early on and present their design ideas. They also were gracious enough to share pictures, photographs of the inside of the building, which I've never been in this. Mary McComb, you've been around a long time. You might have been in this building before it was a business, but I was
actually, I took dancing lessons in that building in junior high. I won't say when that is, but yeah, it's the East End, 2nd floor of the building.
Yeah, so it's beautiful and they've kept it beautiful. So what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second? I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Please unmute.
Aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Next agenda item, please. Staff update. Take it away.
Nothing substantial to report. The trash canvas project is well underway, and the majority of those trash bins and planters have actually been painted. So if you haven't had a chance to walk downtown and socially distance from other downtown folks, go check those out. It's definitely a nice addition to our downtown. It has a lot of color, something that I think is well received from just in general. So the other item is we still have not received final approval for the Clark Street, Main Street Historic District designation. My understanding is that it's held up at the federal level because of this thing called COVID. And so we'll continue to hope for the best on that. Again, that was approved by the state last fall, now that I think about it. So with that, I believe that's all we have. If you haven't had a chance to meet Adam Kuhn, our new planner and zoning administrator, recommend that you pop in and say hi. And I believe that's all we have for now.
All right, thank you very much. Since this is relevant to this discussion, Director, I will send you that old photograph of the square where it's possible to see that corner building, and ask that you forward that to all the commissioners. But our agenda is exhausted, and with that, we will call the meeting adjourned at, I have 3:11 p.m. Thank you.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.